Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, mamas and papas, childrens, everybody, male and female, and people behind the binary. Actually, not just people, because some people are not people. Individuals or items behind the binary. Hello, how you doing? It's your boy JB back again with another episode of the African Fighters Podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, this almost did not happen. And I will tell you why briefly, but before I do, my boy King Dems from London, England. How you doing, Demola?
I'm doing great. I can't complain.
Awesome.
It's been a roller coaster.
Yes, I know. Today, Sunday, 5th of May 2024. This is episode 49 of the African Fighters Podcast. This is where we talk all things African fights, combat, African fighters in combat sports. No matter the discipline, if it comes to our timeline, we will talk about it. And before we do, quick one. Demola literally just arrived London right now. He traveled. He was on a train. I was about to do this solo by myself. Then he was like, I think I can hop on it. I was like, okay, great stuff. Get in here. Then that's why we are like an hour delayed. We don't always start this late. But yes, here we go. As I said last week, and I will say again this week, the show must go on. If you are joining us, please hit the like button. We really do appreciate that. I learned recently that YouTube algorithm only pushes your video when the likes are up, when it gets to like 10 likes. So I think this week, this week, we are looking for 10 likes. So please, if you love us,
Let's go.
10 likes, please. Hit the like button. We appreciate each and every one of you, man. Kingdoms, how was your trip? How was your trip to Lithuania?
Wow, it was a great time, to be honest. I really want to go back there again. I went to put the lead in Lithuania.
Yeah, so basically, Lithuania was lit, as the kids
It was
in the
great.
Gen Z generation right now will say. Lit,
Yeah, I'm a Gen Z at heart. I was in
yeah,
two cities. I was in
it was.
Kaunas and I was in Vilnius.
Oh,
And
nice.
interestingly, right, when I was watching UFC 301, there was this lady who was fighting in the prelims, and she's actually from Lithuania, and she was in the city that I visited that day.
Ah,
Yeah, fighting out of
nice.
Kaunas, Lithuania.
And you
I
were
can't
like, yes, I know what he's talking about. All right. Yeah, I can only
so
imagine. I can only imagine if they say someone is from Nottingham, England. It's all right, guys. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us. But before we do, I think this is a new culture for us. Bruce Buffer, please take it away.
It's time!
Yes, it is time for the African Fighters Podcast. 5 rounds, heavyweight stuff. A side, obviously. Demola B side. All right, guys. Before we
no way. I'm inside always fighting from the red corner. That's why you're always fighting. You're fighting from the blue corner.
okay. All right. Yeah, before we start, I've said this like 3 times. Shout out to Christopher Graham. We have not seen Christopher Graham on the Patreon dropping questions for a long time until now. So he did drop some few questions. Um uh Brother Christopher Graham, we hope you're doing all right. We hope the baby is amazing. I'm sure he is. Best wishes to you and your family. Anyway, so some activities happened this week which might not be very popular. Obviously, UFC 301, which was an underwhelming card before the fight happened, most especially coming from UFC 300. And yeah, you could tell that UFC 301 wasn't that exciting when the biggest piece of promotion the UFC engine was pushing was Aldo, King of Rio. That was like the biggest thing they were pushing. So they are really out of stars on that card. Anyways, that happened. A few talking points around there. But
say
of
you don't like
course,
the flyweights. Just say you do not like the flyweights.
well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. I've learned not to be talking too much down on flyweights and women MMA, but what do we have here? We will talk about Losene Keita. Losene fought in Oktagon this week, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about UFC coming to Manchester, a few talking points around that. And from the thumbnail of our video, we said, what is your best moment? I think we're going to do five. Your five best African MMA moments, and we'll discuss that. I think because of how short of a history African MMA has, we will probably have the same list, but we will go through that as well. Um, we've got Dot's Greatness in the chat saying, how did it go with Porthan at 301 King Dems? We'll get into that. We'll get into that. King Dems, you've got a question.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Before we do the first question via Patreon with Christopher Graham, you can also give us your question so we can prepare and answer it on Patreon. Support us on Patreon. The link is in the bio or in our YouTube channel. You could always find it, or just go on Patreon and search the African Fighters. We are there. Just pledge any amount to support the channel. Maybe buy us a coffee. Yeah. Um. It says, which African fights in May are you most looking forward to? May is a very, very stacked calendar. We posted about African fighters that is going to fight our May. Well, if you don't know, on our Instagram page we put out we call it a fight guide, the African Fighters Fight Guide, where every month we pull out African fighters from several promotions, and we we show you guys so you can mark your calendars and know about the fights coming. And we did so this month as well. And I have it handy here, and I'm going to list these fights with you, if I may. Some of them. However, the question is, which fight are you most excited about? Losene Keita, I absolutely love that guy. It has already happened this May, uh, 4th of May. That was 2 days ago. Actually yesterday. We have Brave CF, a Bahrain MMA promotion, a very, very big MMA promotion coming out of the Middle East. They're doing their fourth African card, and this time they're doing it in Mauritius. Mauritius, of course, is a country very close to Demola's heart for reasons known to him. On top of that card, we have the trilogy bout of Nkosi Ndebele from South Africa, and he's fighting his arch nemesis in Jose Torres. Nicholas Huende, Lutando Bitko, Eliza Kubanza, and Ananias Mulumba will all be in action, and that's Saturday, 11th of May. Next, EFC is happening this month as well, I believe. However, Bellator have a few Africans on their card on 17th of May. We've got Cedric Doumbé, crazy guy. Cedric Doumbé in Paris. He's gonna fight Jaleel Willis from America. However, that's a replacement fight. Jesse is saying, wasn't I the one that told you guys about Lucine? I
Losene
think
Keita.
wait, Jesse, hold on. I would want to also give credit to Christopher Graham. He is a sucker for this Octagon MMA. He's been talking about Lucine. He actually wanted us to interview Lucine, which we are actually in communication with Lucine. He replies to our DMs. So if we get time, if we get a chance to do that, we would absolutely do that. He's a very, very nice guy. Um, Yves Landu from Congo is going to be fighting in Bellator as well. We've got a Ghanaian here, Archie Colgan. We've got the return of the Tunisian heavyweight Slim Trabelsi. We've got Tunisian Mansour. We've got an Algerian Assel Joju, all fighting on Bellator 17th of May. And we've got a very, very big member of the African Fighters Show, Temba Gorimbo, fighting on the 18th of May. Shout out to Temba. Toby used to call him Borehole Builder. We've got a Nigerian here fighting on the undercard of Usyk versus Fury in boxing. That's Joshua Oluwaseun. He's fighting Mark Chamberlain from UK. And Brave, the later card of Brave would have Alex Lahore from Ivory Coast and Nabil Huli from Morocco as well. Right. I know that I rambled a lot, and if you are not interested, you should go to our page and have a look. We tagged the fighters. You could also go give them some love, African fighters, if you may. Um, to answer the question, which fight I'm most excited about? Of course, and not that I'm being biased. I am on the bandwagon of Themba Gorimbo. I'm riding on his story.
Oh,
I am
the answer.
I'm super invested in the Cinderella man. I really want to see. It's more like pro wrestling, not just that I know Temba, but the fact that there is an incredible story going on with him in the UFC and what he's been through, and what he's turned his life around and how he's helping people. I really want to see how that's gonna go. Speaking about his career, so Temba Gorimbo, if he comes out and put in a showing, it's only gonna make his stock go up and up, and he's very capable of doing that. Looking forward to that. So I would say in the month of May, that's the fight I'm most looking forward to. UFC 302 is happening in May, isn't it? Oh no.
Yes,
Uh
exactly.
no. Now next month, because
Yeah,
301
oh,
was
that's
yesterday and it's
true.
man here.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
301 just
that's
felt
true.
I'm telling you, that fight card feels like a fight night right now. Because we are forgetting that
I
it's a pay-per-view.
how lucky did how lucky did that's actually very true. Very
Well,
true. But
how about you? Which fight are you looking forward to in May?
in me, obviously, Thamba Garibo. My answer is the answer.
All right, shout out Temba. All right, because we started late on this podcast, we are not going to stay too long and drag you guys around, but we'll just go through to the next question. This again from Christopher Graham. The question is, what are the 5 greatest moments in African MMA history? Could be a whole video dedicated to this, really, but what are your top 5 greatest moments? I know that I only sent you these questions
Number
just before we
one,
hopped on here.
no,
Before we hopped on
number
here,
one,
so
Adesanya defeating Pereira.
wait,
Shooting the
wait,
arrows.
wait. I'll give you your chance.
Four.
I'll give you your
We can
chance. Let's have
can take
let's
the
have
five.
let's
But
have
number
some
one,
order
that is
here.
it.
Let's have some order here. My number one, that's not my number one. I'll tell you what
That
my
is
number
that
one
is
is.
the consensus number one.
Wait, are we that absolutely that's not my number one, but I'll tell you what my number one is. My number
Who
five, but I'll
cares?
start with
Who
my
cares?
number
Just
five.
search.
My
Just
number
search.
five, my number five was UFC in Australia. I forgot the name of the UFC card. Main event: Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker. That was
Mhm.
when Easy became undisputed. Easy walked out his entrance, did a dance routine. I'm like, what the F is this guy doing? Right? Everything, the crowd was booing him because obviously he lives in New Zealand. However, he is in Whitaker territory, Australia at the time. He walked out, danced, the crowd were booing him, and he went out there and put a masterclass, a striking masterclass. He dropped Whitaker in the first round, and in the second round, he finished him. That was that was an I feel that's a very underrated moment, but I feel like that's actually one of the fights that made Easy who he is today. So I'll put that in my number
That's very true.
5. My number 4 African MMA moment of all time, believe it or not, is Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane. I know Francis Ngannou was fighting to his first title defense in the UFC, and I'll tell you the
Mhm.
reason why this is a huge moment for me as well, and I'm sure for Ngannou as well. This was the fight that everything was going wrong for him. He was injured in camp. This was a fight that he was fighting against the UFC brass. His contract was on the line. He was broke. We heard interviews about him borrowing money from Kamaru Usman up to like $200,000. And at that point, when he's defending his title against Cyril Gane. And let's look at Cyril Gane. At that point, Cyril Gane was undefeated. He has beaten everybody. He does light work to everybody. He was the new shining toy. for Dana White. Dana White was absolutely on Cyril Gane's back to beat Francis Ngannou because Francis Ngannou was not budging in that contract negotiation. And what did we see? Francis Ngannou came with a busted knee. He was injured. He needed surgery, but he didn't do the surgery. He fought that fight with a bad knee, and he fought against adversity. That's something that was very huge, not for just for Francis Ngannou himself, but for Africa at large. I feel that fight would have decided what Francis Ngannou will be right now. If that fight had gone, if Francis Ngannou has lost that fight against Cyril Gane, I don't think he'll go ahead and have the boxing career that he has right now and make those millions. His hype would die down. One of the biggest thing he has going on for him is the fact that he left the UFC as a champion. So wherever he goes, they would say former UFC champion or the UFC heavyweight champion. That was something they used to promote his boxing fight with Fury. So to me, that fight was more important than him beating
Stipe.
um, Stipe
Stipe.
Miocic. Yeah. You know why? Because it was one of those pandemic UFC Apex card. It was one of those card when during social distancing for the COVID times, it was a small arena. Nobody was in there, to be honest. It wasn't as you know, I always say I like the atmosphere, arena atmosphere, the crowd roaring, that gladiator electrifying atmosphere that it wasn't
Exactly.
there. Yeah, it wasn't there. So um I feel like that fight against Rogan, even though there wasn't a knockout there, would be my and that's my fourth. That's number 4 for me on my list. I'll go to number 3. I think I've rambled too much. My number 3 is happened earlier this year. If you follow Dricus Duplessis' story to where he is today, I understand how sensitive it is when he says he's going to be the first true African champion. However, the way I would like to phrase it is Dricus Duplessis is the first African champion that was born and lives and trains out of Africa. So I feel like that's a different flex to come out from Africa and then go all the way in a sport and be the best in the world at that sport. I feel there's a lot of obstacles in the way, and it's not always easy. Maybe if you look at it in a way like Dricus, or he's maybe a privileged white South African, he has all the amenities to train. But then if you look at it also in this other way, in South Africa, the quality of training partners he have is very low compared to the rest of the world, compared to like leaving Africa basically. So the fact that with all that he has uh, training partners and the quality that they have compared to world standard, with that adversity that he had, he still stepped up and became the best fighter in the world, because you are the best fighter if you're a champion. I know you would not agree because of your boy Adesanya, but I feel Dricus huge moment for Africa. We saw the reception he got when he got back to South Africa. That was incredible. I would have loved to see something like that for Easy or Usman if they go to Nigeria, but unfortunately, Nigerians don't really don't really subscribe to that type of fare, if you understand what I mean. Um, we did see something similar. Francis Ngannou, the huge reception when he won the title in Cameroon, but that's different. And now my number 2 is going to be Easy finally defeating his demon and beating Alex Pereira. That fight where the iconic pose of bow and arrow. Um, I would like to say Israel is the Cristiano Ronaldo of MMA, because that guy, he does things that if a normal person will do it, they'll be like, you know, in the world, people do the Ronaldo sui, like when they when he scores and does the sui. The most, in my opinion, the most popular celebration in the history of UFC. Forget, is it Shogun that is doing the shovel, or is we've seen Shogun? Correct me if I'm wrong. Shogun doing the
Mauricio
shovel thing.
Shogun.
We have Derek Lewis punching the ground and doing bringing his tongue out. We have that. Um, yeah, so there isn't too many, but Easy is iconic. He did that bow and arrow pose, and we what we saw like 2 weeks later in a fight night, another UFC fighter did that, saying Easy inspired him. So, um, it
That was a
was it was an
drama.
yeah, it was a knockout scene all across the world. Um, felt all across the world. Easy biggest star in the world, and he's always been an inspiration. And number one on my list, you might find this weird. Number one of my list is Usman versus Masvidal 2. As you know, if you don't know, I'm a biggest mark for Kamaru Usman. The reason why I got into the UFC is because of Kamaru Usman. So
Mhm.
a lot of people will say, "Oh, Usman is boring," and Usman is that. I know I don't have an appetite to watch MMA fighters wrestle, but I have
Mhm.
an appetite to watch Kamaru Usman wrestle. He's the only wrestler that I will watch wrestle. I wouldn't be like, oh, stand up and bang now. But yeah, absolutely. Kamaru Usman knocking out Masvidal cold. One of the biggest fight cards that year that it happened. Sold over 800,000 pay-per-view buys. It was the first time the UFC had a full arena and sold full capacity coming out of the pandemic. It was monumental. It was crazy. I can still taste the air of where I was at the moment that knockout happened. So to me, that's the greatest moment in African MMA history. I know I've rambled too much, but I would want to hear yours. I would want to hear yours.
Okay, so I think most of, if not everything, you have actually lined up or relate to the UFC, right? But I am going to come with like a more balanced approach, right? So my at number five would be a moment from Bellator. That would be Rafian Stotts winning the Bellator Interim Bantamweight Championship. Yeah, Rafian Stotts is my boy, right? And of
Mm,
course, like I feel like that was like a big moment for African MMA because when we think about MMA, right, we tend to think about just the UFC. And a lot of people, the casuals, right, usually think that UFC is the name of the sport, but apparently MMA is what the sport is, right?
fine.
So for him
Rafian
to have
Stotts.
that championship, right, it's a big deal. Number four on my list would be our brother from DR Congo, Impact Kasanganai, right, winning the PFL Grand Prix. It's a really really big one, and given the challenges he had to overcome on the way to that title, being a wild card, right, it's something from the storybook. Number three would be, I think, as much as I like the fact that he is a rival to my boy, I would agree with you on number three, Dricus Duplessis, right? Winning that championship. It's big, it's big for my people in South Africa. And, it's making African MMA to be on the global map. Number two would be Kamaru Usman. Yeah. Kamaru Usman beating Masvidal. And the reason why I picked that as number two is a lot of people were looking at, had this negative image of Kamaru Usman as a boring champion. However, from that fight onwards, it's like something switched in terms of the public image of Kamaru Usman. He became more popular. Yeah, the second fight, right, where he knocked him out, right? Yeah, I think, and with the whole put some respect to my name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he just switched, And number
Mm-hmm.
one is Israel Adesanya defeated his D1, right? Defeated his arch nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
I think anything beats that moment for Africa. So that's my top five right there.
I like how you did a jollof there. You mixed everything together. Thank you for saving my ass on that regard. Uh, I would like us to be very diverse, but as you can see, I was very narrow with my list. Very UFC heavy. However, let's go forward. We've already spent half an hour here, um, going through Christopher Graham's questions. Uh, all right. As we said at the top of the hour, we said that Losene Keita performance in Octagon 57. Losene defeated former Cage Warriors champion in uh oh crap. I don't have his name here. I forgot. uh yeah, I have it. Um yeah, so Losene defeated via unanimous decision. He was the co-main of that Oktagon card in the Tip Sport Grand Prix. So if you don't know, Octagon are doing their own Grand Prix, and there is a prize of 1 million euros on the line. And we had in the round of 16, we had Losene Keita versus Sadari, who obviously is trying to win the 1 million. Losene won 29-28 on all judges' scorecard. He faced adversity in the fight. He cruised in the first and second round, and in the third round, he got knocked. Not that he got knocked out, but he got knocked, but he still stayed in there and ended up winning the fight. So across all the judges' scorecard, obviously, rightfully so, they gave Sardari the third round, but Losene obviously took the first two. So one thing about Losene is he's an entertainer. If you watch the post-fight interview, you you would see how much hype there is. He is the first time I heard Lucien speak, not now, but like a while ago. I was surprised with how good his English was because I know he resides in Belgium, I believe. He also knows how to sell fights because he picked that moment in his Octagon interview to promote himself, promote the company, promote the next fight. Um, I feel like Lucien is heads and shoulders above a lot of lightweights in Europe. He has been ready for the UFC, and I think he would want to finish this Grand Prix first. We reached out to Lucien in our DMs the other time talking about like him going to the UFC. I'm not sure if it was in the DMs or maybe I saw it in an interview. He said he's okay with the money he's making in Octagon for the time being, and he doesn't want to like go to the UFC right now. There's still plenty left to be done. So I think if he stays and wins that 1 million euros, there's nothing else left for him to do. And right now in the quarterfinals, he is paired with Bogdanovic, and would love to see how that would go. I believe that it's going to be in Octagon 59. Um, I know you might probably have not seen that fight. It's very difficult to find replays. I think Octagon they do pay-per-views and they are also on the zone. If you would want to see the Octagon event, I think before I pass it to you, I just want to give a shout to Octagon. They are a premier promotion here in the UK. If you're going to list the top three premier promotions in the UK, they are head and shoulders, again, using that adage, head and shoulders above plenty promotions here. Me and Farouk was having a conversation and he was trying to compare them to RS. I'm like, that's blasphemy, bro. That's blasphemy. But shout out to Octagon. They've got an incredible crowd. They do some shows around the UK. One of these days, me and you should go check out one of their events. Whenever I see an Octagon event in the UK, I always look to see if Lucien might be on the card, and he's not. Whenever if he's gonna be on a card in the UK, I'm definitely gonna go. Um, how about you? What did you think about Lucien?
For me, like I always want to see our African brothers succeed. Like it's fuel, it's motivation for me. So, like you said, I think I would make it a note to try to see his next fight, and of course support him for that 1 million euros. Bruv, there's a lot we can do with that money. There's a lot, but in terms of the top three promotions in the UK, I don't know. Like I
In
never knew
Europe?
that in Europe rather, right?
Mm.
Cage Warriors, like where would you rank them?
Well, Cage Warriors, the guy that Lucien fought is former Cage Warriors champion. He was saying that obviously fighters have egos. Sadari was saying that he's the best lightweight in the world. Blah 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 blah. And obviously we saw how that fight went. Not that I would say Sadari gave Lucien one of his most difficult rounds ever in the third round. But still, you can see that there is class between the two of them. You can see who the better fighter is, and decisively, the better fighter won by the judges' scorecard. So Cage Warrior, obviously, it's got legacy. There's also the thing about the UK thing going on. It's a British organization, and then they have like a crazy list of alumni of the guys that have fought in Cage Warriors and ended up in the UFC, from the Conor McGregors to the Paddy the Pimblett to the um I keep on forgetting this UK middleweight that was a welterweight before. He's
MVP,
left the U. No, no, no. Darren Till. Darren
Aaron
Till.
Till. Oh,
Yeah. Even Ilya Topuria was there at some point, I believe. Crazy list of alumni for Cage Warriors,
I'm
but
not with the of alumni.
yeah, this isn't something I'm very learned about. I'm not very smart about the distinction between European promotions, but from what I can see and the level of production that Octagon MMA does, I think it's pretty up there. If you're going to mention promotions in Europe, it's Octagon MMA. It's what's the name of that Polish one? KSW, and
KSW.
then yeah, and then Cage Warriors. I think the likes of RS are like mid tier of quality, not just quality of fighters, but quality of all round production as well. Um, yes, Christopher Graham just clocking in. Keep up the great work, lads. Keep
Has
up
the
the great
baby.
work. Yeah. Hope the baby's doing all right, Chris. Um, moving on. Here we go. A great flyweight fight last night. Erceg looks really good. Well, who is
But
next
it
for
was great.
Panto? Yeah,
I'm
who
glad
is
I
next
didn't.
for Pantoja and when? Well, a lot of people were criticizing Erceg when the fight was announced that he's going to challenge for the flyweight title. Me and you included were like, why are you putting the 10th ranked fighter as a title contender in his only fourth fight in the
Mm-hmm.
UFC? I
Mm-hmm.
think we saw a reason why. That guy is a killer. He
He's a
put
legit.
on he put on a great performance. A lot of people online are saying that there was a robbery that happened.
No, no,
Um,
it wasn't a robbery. I saw that fight live, so
mm,
and I was covering
mm.
it. So at the end of it, I knew, I just knew
There was a
because
judge in there that scored the fight 49-46,
that
basically
judge was
giving
that judge was
yeah,
on weed, right?
giving it to Pantoja.
Level drug, right? But it is arguable because really his best round was I think the third round. Yeah. Essex best round. However, Pantoja was controlling Erceg, but then Erceg was landing more of the damage. And from the optics of the fight, if you're doing more of the control, it looks as though you are the one in charge of that fight. So if you check the stats, right, Erceg had more head shots, right? Pantoja had more body shots, and then he had more ground control time. So arguably, from the optics of the fight, from what you can see, you think that Pantoja is actually controlling. And for you to take the belt from the champion, you need to beat the champion convincingly, right? Heading to the fifth round, I thought it was 2 rounds apiece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could be 2 rounds apiece, but any learned person who watches that fight or who just saw the fifth round would
Mm-hmm.
agree that Pantoja did well enough to win the fifth round. And I think Pantoja did enough to keep the belt and still.
Um. Okay, so now that this fight has happened, Pantoja now, who do you think is the next challenger for Pantoja? Well, who do we see him fight? Do you have any suggestions for that?
Uh, me being biased to let him fight our brother from Angola.
Angola, Manel Cap. Well, we have to see Manel Cap make weight. Manel Cap has been missing weight left and right, and obviously he's been unlucky.
Yeah,
Um,
if he's won the championship, he will because I think the number. Okay, there was a fight recently. Nicolau and some other guy. Some guy
mhm.
beat Nicolau. Who was that guy?
Yeah, I forgot his name, but that was the replacement fight for Manel Cap. Manel Cap was supposed to fight Nicolau, and then
Yeah,
the fight fell off. He got injured.
Yeah, so the guy who beat Nicolau typically should be next for the title. However, he should be off for a while. We don't know the recovery time, right? But then Manuel Cap, it seems like that person in the top five that is fresh and without a fight. If they could have given number 10, there's arguments, enough argument for them to give him. If not, the guy from Australia, what's his name, that Manu Cap was meant to fight, Kai Kara, yeah,
Kaikara,
KKF, yeah, Kai Kara.
Kaikara. If you refuse to fight me, I'll come to your city. I will come to your gym, and I will spar you. You and your whole team are a bunch of effort. So,
Like
so every
he's
time
not
I think,
hype
every time I
around.
think about Manel Cup, that's what I think about. Kaikara, you. Um, yeah. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. How about Brandon Royval versus Erceg next? Two former title challengers. Let's keep them from knocking off other contenders. Would be a great addition for Perth, Australia. So
Mm,
basically Christopher Graham here is playing matchmaker. He's saying
wow.
we should the former title challengers should cancel each other out so we can get fresh matchups in the flyweights. I agree.
That's
I
not a bad
agree.
idea. But
As you
I just
know,
remember that Mirabazi as well. He's in the mix.
I'm not a very big fan of the flyweights.
I
So
know. I
I'm
know.
not very opinionated about the matchmaking in that division. But as long as I'm seeing Manel Cap there, I'll be very happy.
But
All right.
brother, you know something. You should watch that fight, the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
The flyweights are highly skilled.
I know.
Forget you them. Like they are the real example of mixed martial arts,
I
right?
know. I know.
Everything from the striking to the grappling. Look at the grappling transitions to the wrestling. So what else do you want these guys to do for you?
The greatest ever move in the history of MMA was Mighty Mouse picking up a fighter up and from the sky as he's slamming him, he
From a
transitioned into an
suplex,
armbar.
yeah, from a suplex to a submission. But what else?
Yeah, yeah, but Mighty Mouse, well, it's a whole different chapter with him and UFC and all his one plenty title challenge defense. Um, all right, let's talk about UFC 30304 that is gonna happen in Manchester in July, as announced by the UFC. Tickets coming out soon. I am definitely not going because the tickets are gonna be crazy expensive. So
Why?
this is going to happen in the brand new spanking arena in Manchester called the Co-op Arena. It's going to be the biggest indoor arena in the whole of the UK, carrying the capacity of 23,500 people. Now, this arena was supposed to be opened last month, but has constantly been moved. It has been moved. There are so many issues with the arena, and they have been canceling events. They've cancelled so many events since the inception, and the due date has been moving. There was a time that an American rapper earlier last month, an American rapper was actually earlier this month, was on the 3rd, right? It's called Boogie the Hoodie. Boogie the Hoodie was going to do a concert there, and fans have gathered outside waiting to get in, but they didn't open. And then uh, Twitter news was sent out that the arena was closed because apparently they had issues with the ventilation and the heating of the arena. So the arena
Wow.
apparently was supposed to be ready but wasn't. And so many concerts have been cancelled. There are about 5 artists that had cancelled concerts there. I can name them for you. We've got Olivia Rodrigo, who was supposed to have on the 3rd and 4th of May, cancel those ones. Boogie the Hoodie on the 1st of May, cancel that one as well. Take That was supposed to perform there on the 9th of May, cancelled. Barry Manilow, Keen, which is a British rock band, Ricky Astley, um, were all cancelled. Black Eyed Keys, 15th of May, cancelled or postponed, and Peter K. Most of this, uh, most of this, I'm just seeing Christopher Graham's comment. I think Christopher Graham is way back in the stream. He's saying, he's saying, great shot picking Francis Ngannou defeating Cyril Gane as a top African woman. Great storytelling. Well, I don't know which storytelling. Is it my story, me telling the story that is great, or is it the story of that fight? Yeah, Christopher Graham is 25 minutes behind the stream. Yeah, so this arena seems to be having issues, and July is just around the corner. Do you think the UFC is risking, because there's so far there is no official date of when the arena will start operating full time? Do you think the UFC are running a risk of doing an event there? All this list of artists that I mentioned to you, all their events were postponed and some of them were moved to the AO Arena, which is the rival arena of in Manchester of Co-op Arena. Co-op Arena, by the way, is just next to Etihad Stadium. That's the Manchester City Stadium. And yeah, the way your eyes have been opening is like this is news to you. You didn't even know that.
Like it's crazy because I actually registered for the VIP tickets, right?
Hey,
So
senior man, senior man, senior
always tell me,
man. You need. I need to send Bruce. I need to send Bruce Buffer to hype you up. Bruce Buffer, can you get into this live chat?
brother, I've been
Eh?
I've been a member of the UFC Fight Pass for how long? Probably since like 2019. Like they always take my money every month, right?
So you
So
have been giving Dana White money. Okay.
I'm telling you, White have been taking my money since 2019, right? So, like, when they sent me the email for the early access to VIP tickets, I was like, okay, fine, Manchester, it's not far from me. Okay, no problem. I'll I'll go there and try to find a way to convince Jibril Aminu. So, and basically, once they give you those early access, right, you can actually buy the VIP tickets
Mm-hmm.
for like the would I say discounted price directly from
Mm-hmm.
the UFC.
Mm.
So that was my plan. And now you're not telling me that the arena, I'm like, excuse me, it had better be ready.
Yeah.
It had
Omo,
better be ready and
it's
necessary.
only you that we go and watch that one. Oh. So you na senior man.
Wow.
Anyway,
Now
so
you're just you're
let's still stay
discouraging
on
me.
the case of UFC 304, right? Also, there was a news that came out. Well, I'm going to read this question verbatim. Any thoughts on UFC putting on a show in the UK at 3 a.m.? I thought this was a thing of the past. UAE gets local time shows. UFC London last year was UK time, and ESPN subsidized all the pay-per-views anyway, right? So, let me try to explain the business side of things from my understanding. So
Prime
take this with a
time. US prime
take
time, bro.
yeah. So take this with a pinch of salt. This is one of the results of UFC merging with WWE. UFC and WWE now being an item, two huge companies in different sports, if you can call pro wrestling sports. They started copying, borrowing, or they started learning from each other what business model makes sense. And in WWE, what they do is they get countries to bid and host their events. I think I've spoken about this before. So now Manchester, because of this time in Manchester, I believe did not pay to host UFC. And the UFC obviously is a business and they are after money. So one of the biggest ways to make money putting a fight card in America is pay-per-view, not just one of that's the main money mover. The WWE don't do pay-per-views, they do premium live events which you can stream on some Paramount app, or what is it called, Peacock app in the US. But UFC, to watch it, the pay-per-views, you have to literally pay in ESPN Plus. So two different things. So the pay-per-view models, that's why the UFC try to sell fights. The pay-per-view models, if you hear them talking about we sold 1 million pay-per-view buys, they are talking about the sales they made in the US. And in the US, they pay about what, $80 for a card? So now if they are coming to Manchester to do a show in Europe and the host is not willing to pay so they can subsidize and count their losses with regards to how many pay-per-view buys they would have lost if the timing is off. So what they would do then is they would insist on putting those fight cards in American prime time. So if UFC decides to do a pay-per-view in Africa itself, I promise you it's not going to happen in normal prime time Africa, it will happen in US prime time. So the only thing that would make them change their timing if because of this fan backlash, the UK government or the Manchester government or the immigration tourism board decide to like step in and kind of like pay the UFC so the time can go down. So to them,
Still in the UK.
last to them is just business. It's business to them. They would rather do these events in the time that they would sell the most pay-per-views in the US if they come here. So unfortunately to the fans and the VIP experience, people like you going to UFC 304, you would have to stay there and sit down and listen to music until 3 a.m. before it starts. Good luck with that.
Wow,
As I'm talking to you right now, it's only 11 p.m. and I'm sleepy as fuck. So so good luck in Manchester, my brother. Before we go, let me react to this list. Christopher Graham just shared his list of top 5 best African moments in MMA. He said number 5, Dricus being the first African-born raised African fighter training to win the title. Okay, okay. And then he says Francis Ngannou defeating Sirogan injured and out wrestling, riding off into the sunset to earn his millions. Okay, okay. Uh, Christopher Graham also said his number 3 is Kamaru becoming first African champion, dominating Woodley. That was momentous, but the way he did it was not star making, if that makes sense. But yeah, I get it. I agree. Number 2, Francis Ngannou performance against Fury. Chris, you asked this question. You said MMA. In your question, you said MMA. I was thinking about that, but you said MMA, so we're going to stick to stick to MMA. And number 1, easy defeating Whitaker, unifying the titles in Australia.
God bless you. God bless you.
What? You said you did not even have this fight in your list.
Come on. It's easy. As long as he has this as number 1, don't worry.
Let me
We do
push
it.
let me push the next question to you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're almost done. Let me push the next question to you. It's still about UFC 304 happening in Manchester that you would likely go to. You might go to. How about Tom Aspinall versus Alex Pereira for the interim heavyweight title in Manchester?
I'd love to see.
Winner fights Stipe Miocic versus John Jones. I think John Jones made this a bit more exciting, which he kind of like made it seem like, okay, this is something I would like to do. If Pereira can beat Tom Aspinall, I would like to unify the title with him. He feel like that's gonna be a huge fight. Mainly because I think when he sees Pereira, he sees someone he can take down and manhandle. I feel like if you would ask John Jones, if you would ask John Jones with cameras off, I'm like, John Jones, who would you rather fight, Pereira or Tom Aspinall? He'll be like, bring that Brazilian striker here. I don't want to wrestle. I don't want to wrestle that big British boy. Because Tom Aspinall is one of those like modern style MMA fighters that are kind of like very, very well rounded, grappling, striking wise, and very, very powerful as well. So he's going to cause a lot of problems for John Jones. Problems that like John Jones wrestling always neutralizes his opponent. But if John Jones fights Pereira, it's going to be very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. But that's not the question. The question is, would you like to see that as the main event? Before you answer, a lot of people have been doing their fantasy booking for UFC 304 in the UK, and they've been putting that as their main event. Even main event, that an interim title fight, they are putting it above the welterweight title fight that no with a welterweight champion that nobody cares about in
Whoa!
in
Why?
Leon Edwards.
Why do you
But
think
I
it's
push it to you. I push it to you, buddy. Um, would you want to see Tom Aspinall versus Pereira, or do you think the UFC would just do Aspinall versus Cyril Gane?
Hmm, it's a dicey one, right? It's confirmed. Thomas Pinal himself said it, that he's going to fight, right? But interestingly, I saw what John Jones said. He said he would like to give Pereira the opportunity to avenge all the great Brazilian champions that he's beaten. I remember, right? John Jones beat Glover Teixeira,
Mm-hmm.
Pereira's mentor, right? Shogun Rua, so many of them Brazilian champions. I think I would like to see John Jones against Aspinall, which is the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Champion versus interim champion, right? That is just the right thing to do. But
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Pinot versus Pereira is going to be really exciting. You know,
Mm-hmm.
striker versus an all-round, a well-rounded mixed martial artist in Tom Aspinall. It's going to be really, really exciting to see, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I think that would most likely be the co-main event. And there's an agenda these other guys pushing, Curtis Blades, right? Remember, they have unfinished business from their first fight in London, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's also a possibility of having Curtis Blades versus Tom Aspinall to defend the interim heavyweight championship. So let's see what Dana and the team are going to cook for us for Manchester.
Yeah, super excited for that. If I was you, I would not buy that VIP. I will just go to a bar and watch it.
Ah, okay. Let's see how it pans out. Let's see how it pans out. But then this.
um, I think we are done with all the questions except for one WWE one. I know you don't
And
really care about this,
said
but I'm
somebody
gonna.
was asking a question.
Which
He said
one?
somebody was asking a question at the beginning.
Oh yeah, somebody was asking you a question. Uh, Dot Greatness says, "How did it go with Potan at UFC 301 at Kingdoms?" So how did it
Oh
go with
wow,
Potan?
wow. It was a great one. I was sparring. He
Oh,
saw me put bags,
ah, oh
and
God,
then
is that
my tracking is worse than Khabib's. Wow. Who
okay? So
cares?
guys, let me
Just
tell you guys what this is. So Demola was in the gym, and then he decided to punch. I don't have the video here. I cannot share it with you guys. Well, I'm gonna try to share it. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try.
yeah, the
Ah,
video. You cannot see it. It's no evidence,
uh,
but fire.
gosh, I am going to find this video right now so you guys can see how silly Demola striking is. Demola striking is like Khabib striking.
Uh,
Okay,
I
I
I
found
will
it.
smash. I will smash everybody.
Mhm. I found it. Uh,
Can't you see you compare me with the lightweight goods? Come on, like I'll take that. I'll take that.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. This is good TV, man. Demola striking. First of all, what are you doing with Burberry shorts in the gym? And then now look at his striking. He's punching below the belt. Why are you punching down? Why are you not punching at eye level?
No, we're practicing
Eh?
body shots, man. Body shots, bro.
But
Lever shots, lever shots.
for your mind, those are liver shots. And then what are you kicking? Are you kicking calves or are you kicking?
We're stabilizing
So
the bag. Come on, do you know
what's your
what
what's your stance there? Is that orthodox or is that that's okay, for our audio listeners, you probably are confused right now. What we are looking at is King Dems doing shadow boxing. Ah, make I cover this. People they see my
I
tat.
see your messages. Oh, your secrets are being leaked.
Okay. I just dey check now, make I see whether there's anything incriminating. Okay, there's nothing there. I'm safe. So, um, yeah, there you have it, Demola. Before we go, last topic about wrestling, pro wrestling. Gable Stevenson. Gable Stevenson was released by WWE. If you don't know who Gable Stevenson is a former, not really former, he's a current Olympic gold medal champion in the heavyweight category of freestyle wrestling. He's an incredible talent coming out of college. He recently graduated from college. He's like one of the greatest heavyweight wrestlers Americans have ever seen. So obviously, and he's a great talker as well. Daniel Cormier is a big fan of him. Obviously, someone that is as great as he is in MMA, in freestyle wrestling, everybody's talking about his potential transition into MMA. Now he's
Yeah.
great at wrestling. Gary Stevenson. If you see him, incredible athlete, he can easily, effortlessly do backflips. Um, and he was like one of those guys that he became so popular that his freestyle wrestling events when he attends are sold out like UFC shows. Like that's how much of a big deal he is. Then when he finished college sports, when he graduated college, he then a lot of people were waiting to see what his move would be. What is he gonna do? Is he gonna sign with the UFC? Then he made a U-turn and signed with the WWE to be a pro wrestler. A lot of people thought it was a big deal for the WWE, but it turns out that he was training with WWE, but he never really got to that level that WWE could actually push him as a pro wrestler. And he had an awful fight as a wrestling match at some point in WWE NXT. But anyways, they took him off their roster for a while. We were not seeing him until recently. They announced that they have released him. Released him. Now this begs the question of, is Gable Stevenson gonna now make a transition and compete in MMA? And my reaction to that, I've seen Gable Stevenson's body build. I don't know what his striking is going to look like, but his body build doesn't really look to me like a fighter in the sense of striking, because he looks like he has short arms. Um, never seen him strike before. Obviously, he knows best, not me. But he doesn't look like someone that would be able to do damage, because I feel like his reach, that is his wingspan, is very, very short. I don't know the number because I've never looked it up, but I'm talking about eye test, what I see in him. And I really don't know, but at this point, his wrestling will be a cheat for MMA. If he gets into MMA in the heavyweight division where people don't barely wrestle, I think he would be able to do some damage if he learns jiu-jitsu and wrestle. So wishing Gable Stevenson all the best in his future endeavor, whatever he chooses to do. And yes, shout out to the WWE as well, the best form of
Your
entertainment
people,
right now.
your people.
Yeah.
Lots of people cheaping right on that. I remember when the hype was really big on him when he won the Olympic gold. I was actually expecting him to transition to MMA with the whole MMA community hyping him up, especially the wrestlers. But really, I think he would. From what I have observed of him, I think he would make a good addition to the heavyweight category. He just needs to train, and I think he would excel in MMA. To be very honest, his wrestling is just going to be a big advantage for him. You don't need to do too much striking at that level, that weight category. If we're being honest, yeah, he will ragdoll a lot of heavyweights. Trust me.
All right, guys. I think this is a good place to stop it. I actually feel like I'm about to pass out. I feel very sleepy. But before we go, I'm just going to introduce or bring back my brother again. Bruce Buffer, can you come here, please, Bruce Buffer, and tell them what it's about to happen?
It's time!
Yes, yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to go home. It's
Time
time
to
to
go.
sign off. Thank you so much for hopping on here. I really appreciate you, King Dems. You just go home. You haven't done anything. You hopped on here to be with me and chat about this wacky sports that we love. Please, if you like, please guys, don't forget to like. Thank you very much. I remember Jibro from the African Fighters, and he is King Dems from the King Dems podcast. Signing out.